I'm James Brierton, an all-new edition of the Carolina Weather Group starts right now. It's Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina, and welcome to a live edition of the Carolina Weather Group, where we have our friend Jared Smith from Charleston. Jared, this is both an episode of the Carolina Weather Group, but also a Let's Talk Carolina Weather, our franchise where, as the name might suggest, we talk about Carolina weather. How is that different than any other week, you might ask? Well, normally we come on and we have newsmaker interviews, right? And we talk about some sort of in-depth topic. Like last week, we talked about America's newest weather satellite. Well, this week, we are going to talk about four major headlines. We have had two mostly busted severe weather forecasts this week. I'm not throwing shade. I'm just being real. We've got another severe threat on Friday, followed by winter's last stand with some brutally cold temperatures in the forecast for early Sunday morning. And when I say brutally cold, I don't just mean like, oh, it's going to feel cold because it's been 80. I mean, it's going to feel cold because it's cold. And so we'll be talking about that coming up. I want to tell you right now, off the start of this episode, before I even let Jared say a word, I want to remind everybody at home that tomorrow night, on Thursday, March the 10th, Carolina Weather Group and the National Weather Service out of Columbia, South Carolina, will be hosting a basic class to learn how to become a Skywarn storm spotter. The class is free, it is virtual, and it is open to anyone. You don't have to live in Columbia in order to attend this class. There is a registration link in the description of this show right now, wherever you are watching or listening to it. So we hope you will join us tomorrow to learn how to become a severe storm spotter in your neighborhood. And then if you fall in love with it, come back on Tuesday, March the 29th, also at 7 o'clock for a virtual class. We'll be talking the advanced meteorology to learn more about storm spotting. So that, Jared, comes just in time for this week, which is Severe Weather Preparedness Week in both North and South Carolina. Here in North Carolina, where I am, we had our statewide tornado drill at 9:30 this morning. My weather radio in my car went off as I was driving to work. That's where I was when I was challenged to say, okay, where would you go right now if a tornado warning was issued? At work, at home, at school, on the go. They always need to get those warnings. Now, for you in South Carolina, it's been moved to Friday because there was a chance of seeing storms in South Carolina today. Mm-hmm. So the Weather Service didn't want to confuse anybody with a drill, so they moved it to Friday, which I'm now realizing is ironic because Friday also has a chance of storms. And let me just say, and then I promise I will stop talking. Let me. Oh, they've changed it. Do you have the Storm Prediction Center outlook from earlier today, like day one from this morning, day one? Mm-hmm. Any place?
Oh yeah, I'm sure we can find it somewhere.
I'm sure we could.
It's in the archive.
Here's what's funny about this. Hang on here. I'm gonna scroll because I'm sure it's on our Facebook page. It is. Actually, the exact graphic I want is on our Facebook page. Okay. We're going to play which day is which. This is Wednesday, March 9th. If you're listening on our audio podcast, just know that it had a slight risk for a tier 2 out of 5 for portions of like central South Carolina, coastal plains, and the coast. So Columbia, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Hilton Head, so on and so forth. Now, don't blink. Don't blink or you might miss it. Here comes Friday. Are those not the exact same graphic?
I mean, one has the words Friday, March 11th
on it. One says Friday and one says Hump Day.
Right. Well, and to be fair, I think the difference is between the two is that slight risk on Friday is actually for well into Friday night.
Sure.
So through much of the day on Friday, not expecting a severe weather issue. That is going to be later in the evening hours. So 9 a.m. As long as we're communicating the forecast correctly, people will know, hey, this is not an actual tornado. Later
I don't
on in
know.
the evening,
It'll be, I mean, that was
yeah,
kind of, was that not today? Was today's storm threat in South Carolina also not later in the afternoon, in the evening?
it was 2 to 3
Yeah.
p.m. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was maybe it was pushing it.
Eh.
I mean, hard to say. Hey, I don't make the calls.
I know, and I'm not trying to make light of anyone who's got to make the calls, but I looked at those two graphics and I went, "Is this a mistake?
Yeah,
It's the same. It's the same graphic."
yeah, they gotta have it sometime, I suppose, but yeah,
So,
no.
so South Carolina, you may or may not have a tornado drill on Friday.
I mean, I'm so honestly
Find out,
surprised they just didn't do it tomorrow, but
right?
people I think people need notice. I think that there needs to be, like, if there's a change, like, because there's a lot of people who do the tornado drill. There's the schools, there's
Sure.
government agencies, there's all sorts of folks who are doing the tornado drill. So, if it's not gonna be on the day, they change it to hey, I don't even pretend to know how all of that works.
I don't know.
It's impressive. It's
I
impressive that it does.
I know, and I'm not normally such a challenger, but we had a slight risk today. We had a slight risk yesterday. Looking at the Storm Prediction Center, today's storm reports are 3 wind damage reports nationwide, and I don't think any of them are in the Carolinas. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I feel like we kind of busted the forecast today and yesterday for severe storms. We had one warning
Yeah.
in the past 2 days, and it was just north of Raleigh yesterday for, I mean, what was a pretty good bow in a
Mhm.
thunderstorm.
Yeah, and again, this time of year still is it's tricky. I mean, we severe weather in the South is tricky. Let's just start there.
Sure.
It's it's tricky, and oftentimes what happens in these scenarios, such as what certainly happened today and may have been a contributor yesterday, is that moisture transport was from the southwest. Thunderstorms were ongoing to the southwest. And as those thunderstorms were going, then what that does is it kind of chokes off that inflow a little bit. The quality of the moisture as it gets up into the Carolinas is just not as good. And
Yeah.
so it gets so that's one thing. You get blow off clouds from those thunderstorms because again, moving from southwest to northeast, you get blow off clouds and that puts a lid on the instability. That puts a lid on how much heating you can get and that puts a lid on the instability. And quite frankly, we just didn't have the upper support today. Um, it was one of those situations where the parameter space was really good. Actually, I mean, the significant tornado parameter across especially the eastern Carolinas for a good bit of the day was into the 1 to 2 range. It was not bad. Um, the supercell composite was not bad. It was well within the fives and the sixes. That's fairly significant. Um, downdraft cape, which is if you've heard us talk about CAPE before on this show, convective available potential energy, it is a measure of just how much energy there is in the atmosphere um, as you go up, and storms can take advantage of that to blossom and convect. There is a calculation called downdraft CAPE, which is essentially you take the wet bulb zero and you trace that down to the surface along a dry adiabat. And I realize I'm nerding out on you guys, but
Yeah. Is there going to
but
be a test after this?
yes, no, just kidding.
Oh, boy.
They don't even talk about this in the advance. But what all that to say is that there was a good bit of that. That was dry air aloft that could be pulled down pulled down from the thunderstorm to cause straight line damaging winds. That's basically what that is. And it's like and downdraft cape is a measure of that. And there was a good bit of it today, especially in Southeast South Carolina, Charleston metro area. Good bit of it. Problem is, we couldn't get anything to fire. Nothing could
Yeah.
fire. And so if you can't, and nothing could take root, nothing could really sustain itself. I believe there may have been a little bit of a cap even, a little further up, that may not have been analyzed as well before. But hey, I mean, yes, it's one of those cases where it's like, oh no, you guys, you cried wolf, but it's a situation where the parameter space was good if something could get going. The problem is that nothing got going. Well, the problem for the forecast, for the problem for it, wasn't really a problem for everybody else. Nobody wants severe weather except for that weirdo who was like, hey, why didn't a tornado come through my neighborhood after a major event? And it's like, oh, wrong again. No. So, that's a lot of what happened today. And again, especially in the Carolinas, again, this is not straightforward. It's not always straightforward.
Yeah, it never is. So here's a look at the HRRR model run, our high resolution rapid model, the 0Z from just about an hour ago on this Wednesday night, which allows us to peek ahead to Friday. And you can see as we get into later Friday, we do have a cluster of isolated storms, kind of a line, kind of a bow that tries to work its way up along that I-95 corridor, almost as far inland as the I-77 corridor. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get any of these to fire off. Now, of course, it has rained a whole lot yesterday and today. So by that measure, the forecast was obviously correct. And so what Jared and I are talking about is, yes, we got the flavor correct when we talked about the type of weather to anticipate. It was that slight risk, that tier 2 out of 5, that probably should have meant we got stronger, more severe storms than we did. Not necessarily a tornado, to Jared's last point, but severe thunderstorms with the potential of damaging wind. Not widespread, because again, we're still talking about a tier 2 out of 5, but we've only had one warning, and I'm not even sure. Did we get any storm reports?
Today's been very quiet.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Just in my neck of the woods, it's been very quiet now.
But it's severe weather preparedness week. And that is done this time of year on purpose, because we were coming out of winter and we need a refresher on what are the precautions you need to take in your lifestyle. How do you receive warnings? I have a friend here in Charlotte. I don't have a weather radio. He just ordered a weather radio. Thank goodness.
Good.
So now he has one that will wake him up in the middle of the night. Where do you go in your house? My closet under the stairs is where we go. It is full of Christmas decorations we took down. They need to be moved so that I can get in there with my family if need be. Now is the time to prepare for those things. So, good reminder this week. But also, it's March. And March is full of ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. And the lion would like to make one more appearance.
Yeah, that wonderful smarch weather, so to speak, is what they call it. And again, this is the beginning of meteorological spring. Spring is a transitional season. You're going to have, especially early on, you're going to have this tug of war between what you associate with spring and the last gasps of winter. And that tug of war is certainly on display here. That's where we get some of that severe weather threat from. But again, that front that's going to come through Saturday, it's going to approach here. It's going to come through the Carolinas late Friday into Saturday morning. It's going to clear the coast probably about midday Saturday, at least based on the current, model projections. Again, it's hard to time a front this far out, but the aftermath, we tell folks that there will almost inevitably be a March freeze, and that certainly looks to qualify here. After a warm February like many of us had, 23, 24, I mean, that can be, we could be looking at our first $1 billion weather disaster of the year.
In the form of lost crops.
Yep. Exactly. You don't need a tornado. You don't need, a damaging windstorm. You don't need any of that to have $1 billion weather disaster in the spring. And this is usually how we do it. This is usually the first one is usually some sort of crop loss, and hopefully that won't be the case. But I mean, that's certainly possible.
I mean, look at this perspective here from Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich at WCNC in Charlotte. Just look.
Yeah.
Look at this. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
podcast listeners. I love you. It is a line graph, and it shows Wednesday 50, Thursday 44, Friday 44, Saturday 48, Sunday nosedive like a roller coaster down to 23.
Yeah, we're gonna get. I mean, down here in Charleston. Yeah, down here in Charleston, like the latest Weather Service forecast package is at 29 at the airport here in North Charleston. We'll probably get pretty close to freezing, pretty close to the immediate coast, if that's the case, and certainly something that we're going to want to watch closely for those of you who have gardens. A lot of people plant.
Thank you for saying that right on cue. It was almost like we scripted it when we didn't. Here's a look at my wife's garden.
Yeah.
Those little buds coming up.
Mhm.
They're thinking it's springtime. You can see she's got a couple of different planters here. I'm sure folks watching right now also have things that are budding.
Yeah.
Put them in the comments if you'd like to share. But she bought, just for this occasion, as a new gardener, she did not yet have this on hand, but a freezing tarp, a tarp of some sort. I don't know what they call it, to protect the plants this weekend. So we will be installing that before week's end.
Yep. Little greenhouse effect to keep everything in good working order there. That's good.
Exactly. That is exactly right. We are going to make a miniature greenhouse.
Yep.
Yeah. Jared.
Yeah.
What about winter weather? It's going to be cold enough to support winter weather. Are we going to get any winter weather?
High pressure.
Which would mean no.
Which would mean no.
Yeah. What about the mountains? You think in the mountains, could we get some flakes? Last lick of
with I mean, if there's a good enough northwest flow, you never can rule it out, right? I mean,
let's go back. I'm gonna go back to Brad's Facebook page because I feel like I may have scrolled past the answer. Here we go. Here's a look at the future cast for Saturday at 11 a.m.
Yeah,
this is just one model run, and this was posted actually 2 days ago. But it's, to your point, it's trying. You might get a couple last flakes. Look, if you were thinking you wanted to go skiing or snow tubing one more time, this is your weekend.
Yeah.
This is your weekend.
Yep. Yeah, especially up in the mountains. I'm looking at I'm looking at the NAM now. Tonight's NAM is starting to roll in, and it certainly seems like there would be some northwest flow on the backside of that front. As high pressure builds in, and when we get that into the mountains, that can generally spur up some snowfall. So again, it's certainly not going to be anywhere close to a widespread snow event for those of us at the lower elevations. But we may be done with that, but we'll see.
But you know what is accumulating?
Pollen.
The pollen.
I had I logged my Kokoraz report this morning with 0.46 inches of rain and a trace of pollen.
Is that an option in the system?
You can put it in the remarks, and you're darn tootin' sure I did that. I absolutely did that.
So I'm glad you mentioned Kokoraz, because next week at this same time, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be talking about Kokoraz. Melissa Griffin's going to be coming on. And we're going to be talking about, because did you know that next week, and I apologize, I may have the title wrong, but the gist is essentially it is like in South Carolina, it is the week to mark citizen involvement in weather. So we're going to talk about how you can be a part of this Kokoraz program, which if you get all those letters in Scrabble, it's an automatic win. And you can report rain and pollen and snow totals. So again, shameless plug. If you want to get more involved in weather, we've got 3 great opportunities for you this month here at the Carolina Weather Group. Tomorrow night, Thursday, March 10th. So if you're listening to the podcast, it might be tonight by the time you're listening to this, at 7 o'clock, Intro to Severe Weather with the Carolina Weather Group and the National Weather Service. It's virtual. It's free. Everyone is welcome. There is a link to register in the description of this show. Then next week, we'll have Melissa Griffin on. We'll talk about Coco Ross. And then we're back Tuesday, March 29th at 7 o'clock with the National Weather Service for an advanced storm spotter class. So buckle up. It's going to be fun. These are open, again, to everyone. No previous knowledge is needed. We do recommend you do the basic class before you do the advanced class because that's just how classes work. We have a couple questions, Jared.
Yeah.
This question comes to us from YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Can you recommend a good weather radio? And I'll tell you, here's what I told my friend the other day. You can't really go wrong in 2022 because a lot of the features I would recommend, as far as I know, are fairly standard. Yeah. You want something that does SAME, SAME, so you can say, I live in this county, so it only beeps for this county. And you want something that's going to allow you to pick which warnings you want. For me, tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning, flash flood warning. If you want everything else, go crazy. It's going to wake you up a lot.
Yes, it
but
will.
It's not your mother's weather radio from your childhood that you're always like, oh, it's making noise, where it would go off all the time for everything. And that I still think is words of wisdom, in that the cheapest of the cheapest weather radios may just have every county, every warning. But I have only seen that with radios that are multi-purpose. CB radios, ham radios, scanner radios that throw in the NOAA weather band kind of as a bonus feature. And it's like, sure, you can tune in NOAA weather radio. Good luck. But when you actually buy a weather radio, a lot of those features that were once nice to have are automatic now.
Yeah, you want to look for on the box NOAA all hazards. That's what you want to be looking for. All hazards weather radio. And if you can do that, and I'm pulling up the logo. I'm literally pulling up the logo right now so I can show you exactly what this looks like here. Let's click a couple buttons here. Let's click another couple buttons here. All right, that's big enough.
Button clicking.
Yep, button clicking, etc. Let me pull that out of there and let me share this bad boy out. I
don't know what he's doing.
I am going to share my screen. I'm going to share.
It's gonna be fabulous, everybody.
I'm going to share this. This is what it looks like. Straight out of Compton, aka Wikipedia. That's the logo you want to look for. All hazards, NOAA weather radio. This is going to be the one that tones out for those warnings or whatever, however you want to configure it. Certain brands that James and I are familiar with, in particular, Midland.
Yep.
Is really, they're kind of like the standard bearer as far as weather radios go. So definitely big fan of them.
I got a couple from these guys. Eaton, Eton.
Oh, cool.
Because, and this is a consideration, I think. Now, this is not one that I would necessarily keep at my bedside. This is more of a like on the go emergency radio, AM, FM, weather, and Bluetooth, because this whole back panel is solar panel. So if I was in a situation where I had no power for days on end, I could use that. I could use this hand crank to charge it, but because it also will then actually charge your cell phone. So I wouldn't consider this the answer to the, can you recommend a good weather radio? Because yes, this is a weather radio, but this is more of like the Swiss Army knife when we're trying to talk about a good steak carving knife. So, I mean, if nothing else, I think every household should have a weather radio in their house that takes both power from the wall, but also battery backup. Because if the power goes out before the warning, you don't want to miss the warning. And don't forget to change your batteries.
Yep. And that's where, and again, you're listening to the radio. That's where you're going to hear the cancellations too. So those are things that you're going to want to know.
Yeah.
One thing I've seen, James, over the years is that changing your weather radio battery is actually something that's really good to do when we are coming up on the time change, which is also this weekend. I know, right? So much as they say change the batteries in your smoke detector around the time that daylight savings kicks in, this is a good opportunity coming up to also look at your weather radio batteries and make sure everything is in tip-top shape there. So again, this weekend, Saturday night, Sunday morning, 2 a.m. Sunday, springing forward, you're gonna get an hour more of daylight towards the end of the day. I think we are all ready for that. It'll be interesting to see just how many people are running late on Monday.
I'm running late every day, so what's the
well, yeah, I mean, point taken. But again, it's a really good time to do those things. A really good time to just check on that readiness and and just make sure that all of those items are in tip-top shape.
A couple other comments from YouTube before we go. I'm not ready for more snow. Chances are you won't be getting any. And that's the spirit of Michael here on YouTube. Good to see you again, Michael. Would be nice to see snow one more time in the Piedmont. I know it's not going to happen. Yeah,
it's tough. What's been interesting actually about this winter, just in general, is that we had that really, really just bonkers January, right? Like January was insane.
Yeah, that was weird.
As it turns out, it was not enough to knock the temperatures down enough to not be among the warmest winters on record in the Southeast. And that is La Nina doing its thing. So,
and that's climate, by the way.
Yeah, that's
one storm is not going to change. Even 3 storms in a row doesn't change the 3-month average. I know that sounds crazy. I look forward to your angry emails.
Yeah, but that's the truth. And again, when you have that kind of a warm winter, you can have these little Arctic shots. We're gonna get on Sunday. But the problem is that when you get towards the fringes of the winter, and you get into those transitional seasons, typically the only way that you're getting that Arctic air in is with it being bone dry with no moisture, or have the cold chasing the moisture, which we all know is a recipe for disappointment.
Well, there you have it. They're playing the music, which I think means it's time for us to get off the stage. We hope we'll see you. There he goes. We hope you will join us for that free Skywarn spotter class. We're so excited to be doing this for the 2nd year in a row, and what better time to be doing it than during Storm Preparedness Week. So, basic class this week, Thursday, March 10th, 7 o'clock. Everyone is welcome. If you feeling overwhelmed or like you're not going to know what's going on when you walk in the door, don't worry. It's for everyone. There's also no door. It's online, so don't worry about that. There's a link to register in the description of this episode. Our advanced class, Tuesday, March 29th at 7 o'clock. We're back next week with Melissa Griffin talking about Coco Ross. And who knows? Maybe we're back on Friday talking about storms.
Friday morning, 9 a.m., South Carolina. Statewide tornado drill. Good opportunity to practice.
Do you want to bet on whether or not that's actually going to happen?
I think it's going to happen.
You think it's going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen.
That's Jared Smith. I'm James Brierton. Stay subscribed to the Carolina Weather Group, YouTube, audio podcasts. Whatever works for you works for us. We're glad you're here. So long.